What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast here on a Tuesday morning. I'm glad you're joining us wherever it is that you're tuning us in. If you're sitting at your desk, supposed to be doing some work, you want to catch up on a little Auburn action, it's okay. What is that, the boss button they put on that for March Madness? You can have a little mouse button at the top. You need to figure out a little screen that you can click on if your boss walks in. But anyway, we're glad that you joined us.
Hey, Brett, let me add one in there. I heard there was a mouse movement device that was set up. You know, I don't know how many tens of thousands of government employees in Washington, D.C. that haven't been back to work since COVID, which is the most asinine, ridiculous, crazy concept I've ever heard in my entire life, is that you really feel like you can be as productive sitting at your desk at home as you can in the office. To me, that's, for those of you that are very productive.
We've been in a twilight zone for 4 years.
We really have. But
seriously.
But I heard that there was this Chinese manufacturer on this mouse, and they had found a way to go in, and one of the major, I don't know if it was Amazon or somebody like that, had gone in and kind of found a way to figure out how many of his employees had purchased this mouse movement device, because they're tracking activity at home off of how much this mouse or your cursors are moving. And they had there's a device out there that automatically moves it for you.
You know what? You know, it goes back to those days that if we'd have just all spent more time studying instead of the amount of time we spend into trying to figure out how to cheat and try to write microscopically on a little piece of paper about this big an entire formula. I mean, literally, that's if people would spend more time trying to be productive and actually doing something instead of spending all their energy and time on how to figure out how to dupe somebody, we'd probably all be better off. But that's a topic for another day. We all know this country has been in a funk for 4 years. Hopefully we're going to get out of it very soon. But hey, look, really everything right now is wide open on the portal. Auburn added 4 more guys yesterday. This is crazy. I mean, you add 2 defensive backs, you add another massive offensive tackle, and you add a backup quarterback. Well, I don't want to say backup. I add another quarterback. I mean, you would think that it's probably going to be more of a backup role, but, you got to like Ashton Daniels, and you got to like what he said, and you got to like the fact that he wants to be here. And, one of the things that Jackson Arnold said, and I don't know, I mean, we've had our share of people leave, and we're going to probably have some more. That's just the way it is. That's why I said, is this just open market free agency now? But for the most part, Randy, after going 5-7, Auburn hasn't had some mass exodus of players. We had some really good players on this team. So don't think they're not being called and contacted by the Oregons of the world and the Ohio States and, the teams that are in the playoffs that say, look, man, you can come up here and be this and be that. And, instead, Auburn's gone out and gotten the number 1 portal class. And, again, we're not happy with the results on the field, but like you've said over and over, the one thing that you can't deny Hugh Freeze and his staff is they know how to go out and find people. And Will Redmond was said to be the best in the business when he left LSU and when Auburn went and got him to be a front office, basically general manager. And he's identifying these players, and the donors and the NIL bearers are going out and they're getting what Auburn needs. Auburn just upgraded massively, man, on the offensive line with these 2 offensive tackles, one from USC and one from Virginia Tech. So, I mean, it is wild when you're getting players. It's all well and good, but when you're a team, and look, you can say what you want to, but I think Alabama's had 15 go in the portal, and some that are rumored to go in maybe today or tomorrow. I mean, I'm sure, like I said, we're going to have some more come out as well, but we haven't seen a mass exodus at Auburn right now.
Well, we haven't yet, but I think the most important thing that you just said there is when Auburn does have several get in, you need to keep in mind what we're getting out of it too. And we've been saying that in basketball. Like, you can complain that basketball's become some wild, wild west out there, and then you watch Auburn and you think you're lucky stars that Auburn's taking advantage of it, because you look at that starting lineup for Auburn. Janai Broome, portal guy. Miles Kelly, portal guy. Denver Jones, portal guy. I mean, Bruce Pearl's playing that game as well as anyone. Now, we're keeping them there for multiple years once we get them. But we're giving them, a year or two to show that they deserve to be in the SEC before we go out there in the high school market and get a Pettiford or a Howard, which we did this time. And they're at Auburn for 3 or 4 years. Janai Broome's the prime example of that. So Dylan Cardwell, yeah, he's one that's been there a while, but CBM hasn't. Another portal guy, 2-time portal guy for CBM, and then Auburn ends up with him. So, 4 out of the 5 starters for Auburn we're getting out of the portal. So we need to keep that in mind. And if you look at the few really solid years for Auburn in football over the last 15, what do all of them have in common, Brett? Portal quarterbacks. Cam Newton, Nick Marshall, Jarrett Stidham. I mean, if Auburn doesn't go and get a transfer guy, and it wasn't called the portal then, but it was a guy that was transferring out of a like program. All 3 of those guys were at great programs.
Right.
Cam Newton starting at Florida, Marshall at Georgia, Stidham at Baylor. All 3 of those guys coming from programs that you may not be, especially Baylor, considered exactly on level or par with Auburn, but at least close enough that you could have a conversation on it. So we can't say anything. With Auburn in the dire straits that we've been in with 4 losing seasons, we need to thank our lucky stars that you got the portal out there to play, because it is the easiest way to clean up a nightmare, is to go out there and spend some money in the portal and to get some guys that can change the dynamic of the team. And at least we've got a coach in place that it feels like plays this game as well as anybody on the football side.
Well, you wanted to figure out which method was going to be the best for success over the next several years. This was kind of like a experiment. You're going to go out and build your team with high school guys and build it the old-fashioned way, or are you going to go do what Lane Kiffin did and try to do it in the portal and make your team immediately relevant from one? You may not be able to do it every year, but 1 year flash in the pan. Ole Miss really crapped the bed this year. They should have been in the playoffs, and they screwed it up with the amount of money they spent and going out and getting. Guess what Hugh Freeze is doing? He's getting a top 5 high school class, and now he's got the number 1 portal class. If you looked at Lane Kiffin last year, his high school recruiting class was down in the 40s, but his portal class was number 1. So this was where the talk. What happens when you start getting a top 5 high school class and the number 1 portal class? It goes back to one simple thing. You better not come up with any excuses anymore.
Amen.
I mean, it is absolutely dead on your shoulders and your back that if you don't get it done, it's your fault. It's your planning. It's your organization. It's everything that goes into what you do as far as building the program, because you got all the pieces, man. But we all know, Randy, when you get that gift on Christmas Day, there's some of us that you tear into the box and it's got directions over there, right? I don't need them directions. I'm going to play all this stuff out. And you get about halfway through the thing, you figured out you left out a piece that was very important. Now you got to take the whole thing apart and redo it because you weren't, you were too lazy to pick up the little booklet and read the directions. Well, he's got all the pieces. Is he going to read the directions, and is he going to put this thing together finally for Auburn on the field? Because he's got players that are going to come in and immediately impact this team, like these 2 offensive tackles, a transfer quarterback, multiple transfer guys in the secondary. He's got guys all over the place, and including what Auburn's got coming back, plus the high school class coming in, man. I don't want to hear about this roster anymore.
Well, the reason I say amen is every time we come on air, I'm saying it and I'm going to keep saying it. I mean, your players and your program and your administration buy into what comes out of your mouth as a leader. And if your mouth is always spewing excuses on why you can't put a winning product out there on the field, then after a while, you kind of buy into that, Brett. You and
Right.
I've been around really good leaders for a long time, not only in the college ranks, but mainly in the high school ranks. And the really good ones don't give themselves or the players that are around them excuses on why they can't be good. No, they try to find ways that they can be good. And so we've all heard it. This is year 3 for Hugh Freeze. I'm hopeful that he doesn't get in front of a mic anymore and spew any more excuses on why he can't, because he has been a magician in the recruiting ranks, and he's turning into a really good transfer portal coach too.
Well,
But we've got to develop our players that we get in here. And I said this Saturday to all of y'all, and then I'll kick it back to you. But if you can't develop Deuce Knight into a good quarterback, if you can't make him a top-tier quarterback in this country, then you don't deserve to be developing anybody from what I've seen. That guy's got every intangible that you possibly would want to go and get in an 18-year-old kid. And so if we don't get it done this time, because we haven't gotten it done, name the last high school quarterback that Auburn went out there and got the most out of it without him, Bo Nix, having to transfer out of your program to get the most out of his own talent. We haven't. We haven't developed anybody. I certainly hope that Deuce Knight's going to change what I just said there.
Well, let me just say this. We'll shift gears out of that for just a second. The whole problem is I'm not feeling sorry for coaches. We do say this. That is if you keep your roster intact. And most of these programs aren't keeping their roster intact. You go get one guy and lose 2. Or you go get 2 guys and lose 1. I mean, the fact that you're trying to make everybody happy is a never-ending battle. And Toolman just said, is any Auburn freshman from last year's class in the portal or rumored to be headed to the portal? Yes, there are several rumored to be going in the portal. And you're hearing the same names we're hearing. All of you are. So you go out and get 2 or 3 guys, but then you lose. This is the problem. This is where you could come up with an excuse if you were a coach. I'm just playing devil's advocate. You go out and build all this stuff up. I mean, we've heard the rumors about Alabama and Mbakwe. Now there's rumors about Ryan Williams, and then we're hearing rumors about Cam Coleman down here at Auburn. Look, if Oregon wanted to come in and buy all our players, if they wanted to put an offer on the table that was almost too good to turn down, then what can we do? I mean, you got to be smart about what you're doing, and then that's why I put on the bottom of the screen, what I put on the bottom of the screen this morning is college football just open market free agency. Because by all stretches now, Mbakwe hasn't left Alabama yet, but he's got a seven-figure deal on the table according to a lot of sources that we know. And it's just a matter, is he gonna leave a place he likes to go somewhere else for a better deal? I mean, you got to put some limitations on these guys, man. You got to have some type of loyalty and buy-in if you ever want to build a program. In the NFL, they got contracts. That's the thing. You sign a 3-4 year deal with a team in the NFL, you're not worried about that guy leaving next year or the year after. You only worry about him leaving when his contract year comes up. And if you're going to want to keep him, or if you want to try to let him go because he didn't perform maybe the way you wanted him to perform. This year, man, I mean, in college football, it's year to year. And it may be some of your better players that love being at your school. And then they in 9 months, they're in the portal and they're like, well, I got a better deal over here. I'm leaving. It's rumored that Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers are both on North Carolina's radar next year as a transfer guy. I mean, they're sitting there at Texas. I mean, does everybody enjoy this? I mean, seriously, it's fun to give all these updates, and we're going to go through some of these guys that Auburn's picking up. But me and you were in a text thread this morning. One of our friends said, man, that whole offense basically going to be transfers next year. You better not buy into somebody as a role. Like when you and I grew up with Lawyer Tillman or Brent Fullwood, I'll use those two because we've used those recently. Don't go buy a 22 jersey, expect the same guy to be wearing 22 next year. Okay? Don't wear it. Don't go get 85 because Lawyer Tillman's going to be a 4-year starter for Auburn, and you're going to build this rapport and this likeness to this player, and you're going to go to Fan Day and see him every year, and he's an all-time Auburn guy, man. And I hate it, dude, but that's where we are right now.
Well, those days are gone, and I'll give an example on why those days are gone and why what you just said is dead on, Brett. if you don't set contracts up, here's what these coaches are dealing with every year. And I'm using an example that I have no knowledge of this example, but I'm going to use one that I think all Auburn fans would understand. Connor Lew is a tremendous offensive lineman for Auburn. Correct, Brett?
Absolutely.
Would we trade him for really any center in the
No,
country?
no.
That's how much Auburn people and the coaching staff thinks of him. Well, Auburn just went out and got a left tackle from Virginia Tech that was an honorable mention All ACC, a left tackle that started every game for Virginia Tech, which is, if they're not our equal, they're close enough for us to have an argument about it. And so he makes a lateral move to Auburn. Do you think that he just came over to Auburn without us committing a lot of money to him?
No.
What's the odds that the money that we committed to him is more than what Connor Lew's getting?
It may be more.
Okay, I'm not saying it is. I'm just using this an example, but that would hit home for us.
Right.
Well, if it is, what's to say Connor Lew doesn't go back and say, do y'all not appreciate me?
He
Y'all
can.
need me to go, do you need me to go out there and play this game? Do you need me to go and play the leverage game like a business and see what somebody else is willing to give me? And I haven't heard that at all. I don't mean that.
You're just using a hypothetical situation.
I'm using a hypothetical, but I bet it's going on at Auburn in some other positions. I know of some of these positions that we're going after kids, and I have no earthly idea what the deals are that we currently have on the table for, say, Perry Thompson, Cam Coleman, and Malcolm Simmons. I don't know what they are. But if the reality is we're going after Singleton, I know what Singleton's worth on the open market, and you do too, Brett. It's a big number because everybody wants him.
He's the number one portal guy in the country.
If you think you're going to go and compete for him, you're going to have to pay for him because he's rated number one for a reason. It's because his production was so good. And I don't know what we're giving these other guys, but either you pony up and give those other guys what you're willing to give him, or those other guys are going to be going, where's mine?
That's why contracts are so important.
So important because every year this leverage game is going to change. It's the same as NFL football.
Did we not say that, though? You remember that,
Yeah.
Randy? You remember everybody saying when you get in the locker room and everybody's standing around, and we were using the offensive line analogy comparable to a quarterback. And we said, well, the quarterback is getting I'm just throwing some stupid number out there, $5 million a year, and his offensive linemen are getting $300,000 a year. Like
let me say, I don't mind that as much, though. That is what it is. What I'm saying is, let me finish. What I'm saying is on the open market, whatever a really top tier quarterback's getting paid, if you're sitting here Deuce Knight next year, just using it as a hypothetical, he sits behind Jackson Arnold this year for 1 year. We have a whole bunch of conversations on who's going to be the starting quarterback next year. He's sitting there, and we go out in the transfer portal again and pick up another guy that we pay 7 figures to, and we're not paying him 7 figures. Same as Walker White that we're dealing with right now.
Right.
I mean, if I put myself in those kids' shoes that are buying their time, but their time should be coming if you're looking around the country. And trust me, there are other programs that are saying, why in the world are you sitting back Jalen Mbakwe and not starting in the secondary for Alabama? We know your talent. We watched you at Clay Chalkville. Let that team rock. We know what kind of – here's, I bet, what's happening with Jalen Mbakwe. I haven't heard that. But I told you this when you and I broadcasted the 6A state championship game last year. Any program that doesn't take advantage of him on the offensive side of the ball is losing out. He's that good, isn't he, Brett? With the ball in his hands, he single-handedly, he had a lot of great players around him. But you take Jalen Mbakwe off that Clay Chalkville team last year.
Well, they don't win it.
They don't come close to winning it.
No.
They're not within 3 scores of them. But with him, they just snapped the best athlete on the field. And that may be even taking into consideration Ryan Williams, is how good Mbakwe was. They snap it back there at quarterback. Brett's good friends with the coach last year. Brett talked to him before the season, and he said, man, I don't know what to do. He's my best player. I'm going to give the ball. I'm going to put the ball in his hands, and we're going to ride him. And they rode him to undefeated state championship run, beat Thompson in the regular season, if you remember.
They did.
And didn't lose a football game. That's how good an athlete. So I'm sure there's somebody out there going,
well,
does Alabama plan to play you on the offensive side of the ball? And if the answer is no, we will. Did you just watch Travis Hunter win the Heisman playing both sides of the ball? That's how good an athlete we think you are. I mean, you can hear the sales pitch to somebody like him, Brett.
Oh, they're all getting sold. And here's the thing. I mean, that was kind of my point. The contract deal that you brought up, if you don't lock people into a deal, you're going to have this across your roster every single year. And you can go out and you're going to try to fill holds of guys that leave. Like, let's be honest. If you're Auburn right now, you're trying to replace what KLS produced for you this year. And
Yes.
He was a very productive wide receiver for Auburn. Now, Auburn's got a boatload of great receivers, young ones, Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, Perry Thompson. We ain't even seen much of Perry Thompson yet. We ain't seen anything of Bryce Kane really yet. Those guys are still sitting over there. But in Auburn's mind, they're in this day and age, yeah, these guys are going to play, but they're also like, we got to replace 979 yards of offense and 8 or 9 touchdowns that just left this building. And so when you got a guy like Eric Singleton out there that's interested in your school and you see what his numbers were, now they're not the same size guy, but you're looking at it from a production standpoint. That's what Auburn and every other school's got to do. And then when you go out and get that guy, guess what it does? It pisses somebody else off. Well, that's my position. What about me? That's my point. This is where we are. And until you sign contracts, until people get, and everybody that's commenting is agreeing with everything you and I are saying right now. And I said this, Randy, over 2 years ago, and you know this on the program. I hate all this stuff. It's not that I don't want the kids to be paid. I'm fine with it, man. People should be paid for their talents in this country. It's a capitalistic society. You and I, as hard as we want to go out and grind every day, we should be compensated for that if we want to get out and do above and beyond what other people do. But there's got to be some type of rule or regulation when you're in an organization and you're playing, because the schools really have the leverage. They have the facilities. They have the brand. They have all that. All of these schools across the country do. So right now, though, the players are driving the bus because they can leave at the drop of a hat. They can be here today, and then all's good. You just had a conversation with them. You brought them into your office. You say, hey, man, how you doing? Everything good? You looking forward to the spring? Yes, sir, I am. I'm bought in. And 24 hours later, you find out the guy's in the portal, and you call him back in, and you go, well, what happened? I just talked to you yesterday. Well, Coach, I talked to this guy, and, I feel like I got a better shot over here. But, I mean, it's like the wind, dude. It just changes directions at the drop of a hat.
I couldn't imagine dealing with it. I really, really couldn't. And just to give another example, and then we'll move on, but and throw some comments up there, Brett. I'd like to see what some people are saying. But, let's just take, for instance, you get a guy out of high school, and I'm just using some numbers that.
I mean, look at that right there. Look at that. Kid asking for a personal driver. You and I heard yesterday that this kid was trying to get worked into a contract down in Florida, that he was going to play on X number % of third downs. That this defensive guy said, I got to be in on 70% of third downs. What? So now you got a coach over there on the sideline going, all right, hey, where's Joe Blow? He's got to be in on this third down.
Trust me.
I'm telling you, this is
mark my word, that's going on in every sport. Mark my word that this great Auburn basketball run, which I can't say enough good things on any podcast, television, radio show about Bruce Pearl. But I promise you, he's having to do the same when he's trying to keep a guy out of the NBA. I bet you anything Janai Broome needed X amount of minutes to make it worth his while to come back to Auburn. Would you agree? Because if Janai gets X amount of minutes, he's going to be player of the year. But if he has to share a whole bunch of minutes, but you've seen him get more minutes than we've seen in the past. I'm not saying that conversation ever happened. I'm just using that as an Auburn example of what you have to do. And until you change the contracts, but back to my freshman deal, I don't know what it costs to get a top tier running back out of high school, but let's just say that number is $150,000 to $200,000. Okay. Next year you have Jarquez Hunter head out, and you've got to go in the portal and get somebody that has shown production. then somewhere for 2 or 3 years, rushed for 1,000 to 1,400 yards a year. We're in the middle of this right now, by the way. Well, let's say that 150 to 200,000 for that high school guy on the transfer portal side, it's going to cost you 600 to 800,000 to get a top tier running back like that. Well, what does that do to the high school guy that's only getting 150 to 200? He's going, is my value not worth this? I've been here in this facility for a year. You thought highly of me before then, but I haven't gotten enough opportunity to put the numbers up that you're seeing this other guy get. My point is, what you're saying is dead on. Until you change that to where, no, you signed that contract. And it may only have to be for a couple of years, but it's got to be for something. Because you can't just walk away from NIL deals and money that's been given and all of these people have thrown. Because these boosters, at a certain point, Brett, I think you and Gary Harris talk about this when you're on Gary's show all the time. These boosters are hit up constantly.
Nonstop.
It's not just one Bryant Denny Stadium or Jordan Hare Stadium, $100 million expansion. It's not just that. It's every single year we've got to come up with $15 to $20 million to fill a roster that's going to be competitive in the SEC. And you're going to the same set of people to get that same amount of money. Whereas they may have been happy to strike you a $10 million check for that $100 million expansion. But you're having to go back to them every year now for another $10 million to help out with the payroll that you're going to need for all of these. It doesn't feel like a model that will sustain itself by no means.
You know it's not, Randy. You know that. I know you're trying to be nice, but you know in your mind that it's not. That it don't work like this, man. The daggum money tree doesn't continue to produce $100 bills. You know, we'd all love to grow one out here in the yard and go pick it when we want to. It doesn't work like that. And even people with mega money, they got that way because they were smart with what they did and with their businesses. It's not because they just want to throw stuff away. They just want to keep throwing money because, I've just got so much of this. I don't mind throwing, $3, $4, $5 million a year at players. And we've talked to some of these guys and they don't mind, but you can't continue to do it and not get results out of it. That's another thing. When you don't look, you saw Mike Norville, and you're going to start seeing this more. He's giving part of his contract back, his money back. I mean, that when you don't perform, you win 2 ball games, man, and you're in dire straits in this day and age with the sharks swimming in the water, and if they smell blood, they're coming after anybody you got on your team that's worth a darn. You better give some money back up if you want to keep your job. But, I mean, this is just so crazy, man. You got coaches giving money up. You got places like Alabama that won't serve a meal in the hospitality room for media now because they're so tight on money. That's true. Okay, that's not – and I don't know what they're doing at Auburn right now. But, I mean, when you start cutting stuff back like that because you're trying to save every penny to get a possible – wide receiver to come in this year, it's beyond I can't fathom it. I really can't. And you got some more comments coming in, and Two Man said just the obvious transfer portal's watered down high school signing day. Wes said makes you appreciate players like Jarquez Hunter. I mean,
amen, Wesley. Auburn has had 2 running backs in the last 10 years with Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, really in the last 7 years, that we should thank our lucky stars. Those 2 guys loved Auburn so much that they withstood probably Georgia and so many other programs that were having all of this success, and they hung in there and didn't transfer out. Both, I think, are going to end up having great NFL careers. Those guys for Auburn deserve more credit than someone that comes through, say, in 2004 with Ronnie and Cadillac that hold on with a group that is going to win tons of football games, and you're going to always be considered one of the best teams in Auburn history. I have more respect for somebody like Tank and Jarquez than I do any of those guys that hung in there with great teams. Do you not, Brett? I mean, I think we've said that a few times, and Wes hits it nail on the head.
No, I think it's a great point. I mean, those 2 guys hung in there when they knew things weren't at their height, and they probably weren't going to win a championship. So they played because they love being where they were. And it says something about Auburn too, I think. I think you and I've got a friend that we were in a text thread with this morning. Auburn went 5-7. If there was ever an opportunity for mass exodus, it was here. We ain't seen a mass exodus from Auburn. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to have a few more get in the portal, but we ain't had 25 kids get in the portal, man. I mean, we've had what, 8 of them? I mean, and some of them never played. So, I mean, it's not saying that it's not a loss, but this is not Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, Perry Thompson on day one of the portal couldn't get in there fast enough. That didn't happen. Now, will one of them leave? Maybe. I don't know. But right now they haven't. And we keep adding people, and we got the number 1 portal class. Now, Glenn's comment, spot on. You ought to love this one because comparable to employees in business. What if your employees came to you every 6 months, said someone offered me more money, cars, traveling, expenses? You had to match or better than that every 6 months or they leave. This is what's going on, man, in these colleges.
Well, it's a thought process every day when you're an employer. When you're a business owner, you think about what Glenn just said there every single day. I think about it today. I will. And there are certain people that I can't do without in my business. It's hard to put a value on them. And if they want to play the leverage game with you, you got to play it back. Now, there are certain others that you have in the back of your mind, and you're talking about it with your partners all the time. Can I do without this position? Or could we hire someone and they not make us go way back with the loss of this position? It's just something you got to think all the time. It's no different. There's no difference here. It's capitalism at its best. And it's a leverage game, and it's a art of the deal when you want to go back to Donald Trump. And, if you saw him yesterday getting a commitment of $200 billion investment into the country, and he up there asking them to double that up. I mean, it's always the art of the deal, but you've always got to be playing it. And it's really, really difficult to do that. And I don't wish it on anyone, because you take the difficulty of me trying to negotiate with maybe a 47-year-old man that's been in the business world for 25 years and knows how to play that game and understands what they'd be leaving, and have the family dynamic.
Randy, we've had it happen to us already.
We've had it. I could be having it right now. I'm being honest. I'm thinking about it every single day, especially when you get to the end of the year, because people start making changes and thinking of changes. But back to the answer, though, on the football side, you're dealing with 17 to 21-year-old guys on this football that they, unless they have really good people around them that can explain what you're giving and taking by leaving, they may not make the best decision for themselves. And older people don't make the best decisions, but they at least have some things that happen in their life that gives them something to go back to and say, well, that was a poor decision I made. I'm not going to do that again.
They have experience.
If you have an 18-year-old doesn't necessarily have that to fall back on, unless someone's there to be an ear for him and maybe help him. So it's difficult, Glenn. I can't imagine being in these coaches' shoes.
Well, and Justin said, I want to make a point about this. We went up, we didn't grab Michael's comment, didn't really say anything about it. Said we need a commissioner or something. Who is even in charge? Bingo, Michael. I don't know who's in charge. It's each and every college that's having to do things for themselves. And so there's not a leader. The NCAA is completely useless and irrelevant. So there is no leader right now. And that's the problem here. That's why everything is completely out of control. That's why you got Phil Knight up there telling Dan Lanning, if you want that player from that team, go get him. Don't let this money hold you back. Go get the best roster. I want to win a national championship. I'm 86 years old. I want to see Oregon win a national championship. And they got a good chance to win it this year. And then they just keep adding and adding and adding to that roster. And so if they want to come pluck all of our best players, they probably could if the player wanted to leave. Now, again, there is still some type of relationships that are built in places, and some people don't want to go all the way across the country. Okay, they have a tie to their home, and they want their family to be able to come see them, in a reasonable amount of time and distance, and they don't want to go to the Pacific Northwest to play. That's the only thing holding Oregon back from maybe just being a super dominant power is where they're located up there in the dadgum far west corner of the United States. where, I mean, some people don't want to go up there. Justin said 12 transfer out and 8 in. Here's how you have to judge the transfer portal. You may lose 12, and you may get 8, and that goes, well, you lost 4 guys. No, did the 8 you brought in enhance what you did as far as your roster? Did you get better with those 8 versus losing those 12? I'm going to say unequivocally yes. The tackles that you brought in, the quarterback room that you've brought in is immensely better than what we already had. So it's an addition, subtraction, but it's also quality. I mean, you lose numbers to bring in quality. That's what you're trying to do in the portal. You're trying to enhance the level of person that you're putting on your roster. That's how it works.
Well, I told you coming into the show today, coaches have always had an immense value to whether your program has success or they don't. It may have more value now because these coaches, you really must trust them on how they see players fitting into the program and the culture that they want to build. Because you're going to see guys go out of your program like Walker White that you had a lot of hope in not only 12 months ago. I mean, you and I would have sat on here 12 months ago and, man, Walker White, he's a big old bull of a quarterback, strong-arm guy. Thank the Lord we had him because he's probably the reason that we closed on these receivers because they played with him and they know what type of quarterback he's going to become. And now here we are 12 months later, and we don't even act like that it's a problem that he left. We don't even, we're 1 week removed from, and it's like it never happened.
This system has made us all numb to it.
We're numb to it. That's exactly right. So, yeah, I mean, it is addition to subtraction, and you've got to decide. But back to my Bruce Pearl comment to you, there's always been immense value, but someone like him that builds such a great internal culture around his program, and he has so many true feelings that you can sense about the players that he's there leading, that they will buy into him and they'll stay with him. It's the reason that Auburn's got 10 seniors on this roster. And it's the reason that if he's there 3 or 4 years from now, Brett, he'll have 10 more seniors on his roster. You have to flip it up. You have to turn it over from time to time when you get that many.
Right.
But, I mean, he's just an amazing leader, and the value for a guy like that, I don't even know how you put a value in a basketball program for somebody that leads that well. The problem in the football side is you're getting a lot of guys like Nick Saban and Kirby Smart and others that are saying, I'm not putting myself through that. I don't have to put myself through that. There's other things that I can be doing. And the moment you lose those great leaders because of the system being broken is when enough people will come out and start crying over it. And right now, I think we're getting really close to that happening.
Justin, he brought in the average player out, average player in for Auburn to kind of go with my point in the last comment. Are you increasing your quality? Well, according to this, everything has a measurable, everything has a metric, everything has a analytic tied to it in this world today. So what we lost was 65.75, and what we've gained is almost 80.
Let me jump in, though. I want to be devil's advocate on this number. When you lose a Walker White, the player average there is just a speculative player average. Now, we're buying in with the way that – now, I know that we're changing it right now because we're one of the top transfer portal sites, too, to come to. But when you're trying to build it through the high school ranks, Brett, the Malcolm Simmons and the others of the world may not have as many touches as they're going to end up with 2 or 3 years down the road. So you got to have a coaching staff that goes, well, maybe he didn't have but 30 touches this year, but I think he could be a 60-touch, 1,100-yard receiver rather than a 30-touch, 400-yard receiver. You get what I'm saying? So
no, I see that. I see that.
It's really hard.
I think you have to have some kind of metric. So.
Yeah, you do, but if you're bringing a lot of young guys in, that metric's going to be skewed.
All right, so
you're letting young guys leave out.
Let's talk about Walker White for a second since you brought him up. We all clamored for him this year. Why didn't he get in? I mean, let's just be honest about this for a second. And this is not a shot at him, but you would think. I mean, Peyton Thorne did get benched this year. Remember that? He played against Cal, and everybody was crying about his play, and he put Hank Brown in there. Well, Hank Brown was the backup, not Walker White. What was he doing in practice? I mean, he had his chance this year, if ever, to get to break through. Where if he was even remotely close, I would have thought Hugh Freeze and Ken Austin and Derek Nix would have gone, man, you know what? We're probably not going to win a championship this year. Our portal guy from last year is not working out. We know Walker White's possibly the future. Let's ride with him, man. His talent, he's right there anyway. Let him get in the game and start making his plays. They never put him in, dude. He never really was an option this year. He got in that Louisiana Monroe game in the very end of the game. I'm not talking about he got in the second quarter. Like, he got in at the very end of the football game. So this is not, I mean, there was a reason he didn't play. And again, we were all hoping that he would be the next guy. But if there was ever a time to get a guy in there and get him, I said it for weeks. I said, why not just let Walker White be your guy the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season and just let him get that experience? Who cares? At this point, we're not playing for anything. But that's not what happened. So, again, going back to what you were saying about trusting coaches and all that, you would like to think that a coach would put his best option out on the field. And right now, he wasn't even the third best option. Well, he was third because he came in ahead of Holden Gardner, who never could get on the field either.
You got to trust the coaches. I don't have a good answer for that. I sat here as loud as anybody begging for Malik Willis to get snaps at Auburn. Watched him through the spring, and he played about as good a spring game as you could play, if you remember back, Brett.
He did. He played outstanding.
We still make a decision to let him go on. He goes on. Was, after all the dust settled, by far the best option we had at that time. When you look and see the production that he had at Liberty and the production that he's had, or at least the potential, the NFL potential that he's had, the way that he was drafted into the NFL, I think in the second round, wasn't he?
Right.
So, I mean, I hear you, but you also have to have a lot of confidence that the coaches are making the right decisions. And look, right now, our coaches are this. They're tremendous recruiters. And so you got to have confidence that they're pulling the guys they want in. But they're not tremendous winners yet. Hugh Freeze is not a big-time winner. He's got 2 losing seasons at Auburn. He's got a losing record overall in the SEC since he's entered the conference, and that's including Ole Miss. So I'm stating facts right now.
What Walker White, I'm staying on this topic. Who's after him right now?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Don't think anybody. I mean, I don't see anybody knocking the doors down for him. I mean, you're hearing about all these top transfer quarterbacks. Now, the problem with him is he has nothing. He has no resume to show.
That's what I just said. But back to those numbers, you have to, you can't take into consideration those numbers when a lot of your guys are high school guys. Now, if you go in the portal and you get somebody that doesn't get a chance to play, but he at least has had 1 or 2 years before you got him in the portal of production, then you do have something to go back to. But most of these guys, the way we built it so far the first couple of years, were high school guys, not portal guys that are transferring out. And many haven't found their way onto the field. So I don't know. I mean, I'm
Steven said it best. I mean, everything we're talking about is speculative. The truth about Walker White will come to life if he transfers and does well somewhere else or doesn't. I mean, right now, if you're a coach at another program and you see that a highly touted kid out of high school is out there in the portal, are you willing to go out and grab him? And is that a guy, or will he have to settle for a lesser than program? When I say lesser than, I mean maybe not a power. I think the kid can obviously go to another Power 4, but these Power 4 schools, Randy, like Auburn and Alabama and all, they're going out and getting a guy that's got immediate experience. And then they've got a guy waiting in the wing that they brought in, like, you're bringing in Deuce Knight. Well, that's what we thought was the case with him last year. We thought Walker White was the guy waiting in the wing to take over for Peyton Thorne. He wasn't even the second string guy. I would have felt a little bit more, I guess, different about this deal if it wasn't Hank Brown coming in in quarterbacking Auburn in the New Mexico game and getting the start against Arkansas. We all asked the question. None of us knows. None of us knows why. Where is Walker White going to start at a power 4? Like Justin said, he's going to have to go probably be a backup somewhere else this year. But did he read the handwriting on the wall here at Auburn that they just went out and got Jackson Arnold and just went out and got Deuce Knight? I can't compete here. I got to go somewhere else. I'm just throwing all this out there.
We don't know.
For conversation.
You know, the hardest part about it is you buy into a thought process on a guy, you watch him and you keep up with him for, 6 to 8 months. He's the lead spokesperson for an entire class that was one of your best high school classes in school history. And then 12 months later, he's gone. It's
Sometimes
a new day and age.
I know it's ridiculous. I mean, again, it goes back to the initial start of this whole podcast this morning. I don't know where it ends. Maybe you said something this morning that you almost have to force these kids to give it a chance, because right now the easy thing to do is to jump in the portal, right? And I don't know what the numbers are, but how many jump in the portal that don't ever end up anywhere? It's in the thousands, dude, of people that jump in the portal every year that end up out there in space that don't have a place to land. So you know what contracts would do? It would force Walker White to stay it out and say, okay, man, I get in here and compete. I was a top quarterback, and let me see what I can do here. Now, again, are there issues in the situations where maybe relationships break down and you should be able to allow kids to move on if it's a toxic situation? Yeah. But I think the easy thing for kids to do right now is when they don't get the money they think they're deserving, or they didn't get the playing time that they feel like they needed to get, they just go somewhere else. You heard Nick Saban say that in his postseason meeting. Every one of the players, and I was told that, you remember that, before the information ever came out, that per guy, to the guy, every one of them came in there and said, well, how much money am I going to get next year, and how much playing time am I going to get? And after about the 23rd one in a row had rolled through, he said, you know what? I'm probably about to take a walk down the hall and tell everybody I'm done. And that's really how it all broke down. It was that simple. He
came back out and said the exact same thing you just said. I told you, I remember the broadcast we did that on. I said, there's a part of me that thinks that just sounds too far-fetched coming from Nick Saban. That's exactly how that went down. And then about a month later, what you told me, word for word, is what he came out and said happened. And it's going to be more of it until they get a grip on it, and they have no leader. It's no different in this country. When you got a lame duck leader, I can't even name who the true leader is with the NCAA right now. Until they get somebody where all of us know who the leader is, and he is communicating exactly how he sees this thing playing out moving forward, then we're not going to get a cure to this. And that name's got to be somebody that brings immediate respect. I've said Nick Saban over and over again, but why the hell would he want to put himself through that when he's making the amount of money?
I told you that. He don't want to deal with that.
I mean, why would he want to? But it is somebody like him is needed to clean this up.
I think he would do it if he thought he could get it reeled in. I think somebody like him goes, I can't even do anything with this.
Yeah.
I mean, there's too much. We use the toothpaste out of the tube analogy all the time, and this thing squirted out all over the floor. I mean, there is nothing left in the tube. It's all just all over your hands, on the floor, everything. So I don't know who you get in task with cleaning this up, and you don't see anybody jumping up volunteering. That's the deal. All right, some other comments coming in before we shut it down here. Alex said, "Do we get Singleton because it's 100% Ole Miss?" It says 100% Ole Miss, but it's only one Ole Miss beat writer project. Don't look too much into that, Alex. I think we're very much into this one, and I'll be honest with you, I'll be shocked if we don't end up with Singleton from the amount of emphasis. But again, it's going to be who puts the best deal on the table. He said we also need to get a Maris back in the boat. Maris Williams, guy that I think is going to be a player down the line, but didn't get a chance this year very much. And, you know, can we keep him from transferring up to North Carolina? We'll see it. So Justice said Mark Emmert got out faster than a cat can lick itself. There's no doubt about it. He sprinted for the door because it was a mess. Steven said all other divisions of college football is about to become more competitive due to D1 FBS chaos. There's only so many player slots at the top level. Well, you've in essence created a sub-pro league, Stephen, with this. And so the pure level of college football is going to be down in your lower levels of college. The college football that we all grew up watching and loving is going to be your purest form. Now, all your five-star superstar athletes, NFL guys are going to be in this Power Four.
Well, except for when you do get a guy that is having, let's take Steven's son, for instance. You know, you put up the numbers that he did, and you have enough people see you, you're going to go from one level, and you're just going to keep bumping up because there's going to be so many people that are after you because they need someone that has shown production. And so
it doesn't mean that they can't move up. I'm just saying that it's going to definitely present opportunity.
But Brett, that's a disappointing part for those programs that do develop players well. We've seen it in basketball a lot, haven't we? Auburn's taking advantage of that. Morehead State.
You know what my son said when we were watching the Alabama-Mississippi game? When Pitts from Auburn made all those tackles, he said, "Daddy, where's he going?" I said, "Appalachian State." He said, "He won't be there after 1 year."
Yeah, that's right.
Look, again, it's what we're talking about. Appalachian State, Morehead State, McNeese State. When you have these kids that go and shine, they're going to get swept up, and they're already getting swept up as fast as you can sweep them up. So it's unfortunate, like you said, but it's the world that's created, and you know, everybody's looking to go up. You know, that's the way we're all raised, and that's what you're supposed to do in society is try to advance and get better. So, all right, we're at 9 o'clock, so we're going to wrap it up here. You and I'll be on today at noon on Auburn Blitz, so we'll continue this conversation along with many others as we continue on. But just some things that you want to hit right here at the end.
Yeah, I want to thank Bunkers again for having us on this past Friday. Just great sponsors of our programming. I hope to be over there with them multiple Fridays in the future. Beautiful location there on West Glen. Coach Kleinert was there with us, and we can't thank him enough and many of the programs there at Auburn University enough for coming on and being a part of our programming. We hope to grow with that. Sensa Green, our good friend Wade Bennett was with us last night as we had our LMG Christmas dinner, Brett. And by the way, that was wonderful in downtown Ellick City at Castelluccio's. But Sensa Green, 3 major markets that they're in: Auburn, Opelika, the Lake Mart, and the Huntsville market. So for air that's cool and clean, call on Sensa Green. Carrier is the brand that they are really big with. So if you're looking for a Carrier unit, call on our good friends at Sensa Green. I'm wide open here in Dable. Lee Apparel and Sign Source, big time sponsors of all of our programming. 256-825-0197. Corporate apparel, custom apparel, promos through Lee Apparel, and signage from start to finish. Lift trucks all over the road. Again, today, as we had some meetings this morning, we got them all up and down the road, even to close out this year. So call on Sign Source for all of your signage needs.
All right, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Again, join us at noon for Auburn Blitz. We'll see you then.